video is sponsored by MPB. Now, I've used dozens of Micro Four Thirds cameras over the years, from very cheap and old to very new and very fancy. And I thought it might be fun to go through a list of lesser known features on the Micro Four Thirds system. Now, a few of these may be obvious to the fellow nerds amongst you, but I'm willing to bet there's at least a few on this list that you've never heard before. I'll be covering both Lumix and Olympus/OM system, and all budgets as well. Just a good old nerdy time. Now, I'm sure you've heard of high resolution mode to get more megapixels out of your camera. However, there's a benefit that's much more important to me because I don't often need 50 plus megapixels. And that's when you shoot high res mode, the images are generally much cleaner and have less noise. Now, this feature is available on tons of cameras from both OM system and Lumix side. I shall pop a list, and apologies in advance if I've missed any. Do let me know in the comments throughout this video because there's been a lot of cameras to check. I've tried my best. So here are some side-by-side comparisons using high-res mode on versus off. Now, of course, we do need a still subject when we're shooting in high-res mode because it works by moving the sensor around using the IBIS in the camera and then stitching an image together from it. So if something moves while it takes the image, it doesn't quite work. I'm thinking for landscapes or perhaps low-light cityscapes. Anything where you need that extra quality and low noise, this can come in really handy. This next one is very niche, but it broke my little heart when I found it. And that's the collage thing on some of the older Olympus cameras. I found this feature on the original EM10, and Olympus made such a song and dance about it that they actually stuck it on the main dial. Of course, a lot of these collage things can be found in a few cameras and they are quite gimmicky, but this one stood out to me because I think it was so before its time. You can make this sort of stacked collage effect in camera. It's not a world apart from what I tend to post on my Instagram post using this sort of template. The EM10 also has Wi-Fi as well, so you could do these in camera and then send them to your phone to share to socials. Now, I'm willing to bet that you've heard of live composite mode, but have you heard of live time? This is a mode that came out before live composite, but it's really useful in its own right. If you're anything like me, when you take long exposures, just one frame, there's a lot of trial and error involved. Sometimes I might put like a 3-second on and then review the image and go, okay, it needs to be 5 seconds or it needs to be 1 second. And I just kind of trial and error it until I get the effect that I want. However, with live time, all that guesswork is taken out of it. You can see the image develop on screen as you're shooting. So you can get it right first time. Crop zoom for photo and video. Now this is on the high-end Lumix cameras, so the G9 II and the GH7 currently. Who knows if it'll trickle down elsewhere. But there's two sides of this feature and I think they're both very interesting and really handy. Crop zoom works best if you're shooting on a fixed focal length lens rather than a zoom. And what it does is it gives you a little bit more versatility. So in the photo mode, you can use your up and down or left and right arrows on the camera and punch in. It may seem quite similar to just punching in editing, but there are a few benefits. It only uses the center pixels in the sensor, so you will get a sharper result, though you will lose resolution. And sometimes when we're out and about, or perhaps if you want to share something quickly online, getting the results in camera is much more effective. It's even more beneficial for video because with photo you are always going to get like a megapixel penalty. However, with video, 4K for example, which you're watching in right now, is only the equivalent to 8 megapixels. So we have these big old 20 odd megapixel sensors and we can punch into them quite significantly and still export the zoomed in image in 4K. So if you're out and about and you want a minimal setup, you can put a tiny little prime lens on, but you can crop in video and photo to get more versatile results. This next feature is near and dear to my heart. I use it quite often and it's on both Lumix and OM/Olympus cameras. I'm always surprised that more people don't talk about it. Did you know that you can edit your RAW files in camera? Now, I'm not suggesting that you edit a full blooming project in camera, but there's been a few times where say I'm on the train home from a shoot and I want to put 1 or 2 images on social media. I can do it in camera. Let me show you what you can do because it's not gimmicky at all. You can get quite a lot done straight away. On the OM system side, you can bracket your different filters. So you can see if you turn between a couple of different looks, you can just sort of bounce them all down to a multiple of JPEGs and see which one you like best. You can also go in and change your grain and your contrast and change the photo profile that you were shooting in. Really, really good stuff. On the Lumix side, particularly if you're shooting with a newer camera like the G9 II, where you have LUTs built into camera, so your own sort of presets built in, you can change the LUTs, you can stack them, you can add grain, you can add contrast, you can mess with shadows and highlights, and you can come up with basically a completely finished, polished image straight away. Now hear me out on this one, because I know it's a bit Marmite in the photography industry. However, this multiple exposure setting has an additional trick up its sleeve. There's two ways that you can shoot multiple exposures, and you can see them in these cameras. The first time is the kind of way that I assume most people would do it, which is a pain in the backside, where you do it all live. You take one photo, you overlay it onto another photo, and hope for the best. But there's a much better way to do it. With the overlay feature, you can pull back an image that you took yesterday or a week ago or an hour ago and leave it on screen, and then you can line it up with a number of different images. You can really make it a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit less scattergun, because when I've been doing multiple exposures in the past, I don't know about you, it's like I just kind of shoot two random images and hope for the best. This is on the OM3, so I'm going to have a tinker with this in the coming weeks and see if I can come up with some good results. This next one you've probably seen on my channel quite a lot, and that is stop motion mode. You can see this on a lot of Lumix cameras. Basically, any Lumix camera that has the time-lapse mode will also have stop motion mode. Now, you can shoot stop motion with any camera. Of course you can. You're just taking a picture, moving something, taking a picture, moving something. However, if you're in the middle of a shoot and you accidentally nudge something out of the way, you'll either have a big old jump in the stop motion or you'll have to start the whole thing again. With the way that Lumix do it with stop motion, you get an overlay of the previous frame. So if something is where it shouldn't be, you can line it up to the previous frame and not lose your progress. Another benefit of this mode over doing it manually is at the end you can bounce it down to a video. I very seldom use that video, but it shows you in camera very quickly what the final product will look like. So there's less guesswork and less editing and less leaving things up to chance. I love stop motion. You can get some really cool results with it. It's so good. There's been a few deep cuts in this video. We've gone all the way back to the EM10 and the GH4. There's lots and lots of cool features on used older cameras as well as brand shiny new ones. If anything has caught your eye in this video, then check out what MPB can do for you. They're a long-term supporter of this channel, and they are the largest online platform for buying, selling and trading your camera equipment. You can grab a bargain, and when you do, you get 6 months warranty for a bit of extra peace of mind as well. And if you'd like to sell with them, you don't even need to leave your house. They can give you an instant quote where you don't have to speak to a human. I don't like speaking to humans. And then you can just box stuff up and it'll get picked up from your door. So they couldn't make it easier for you. If you'd like to see what MPB can do for you, then I have links for UK, EU and US in the description. And if you do want to use MPB, using those links shows that I sent you and I'm doing a good job, which is always nice to know. Thank you, MPB, as always. And let's get back to the nerdiness. Let's take a nerdy trip down memory lane. The Lumix GX9 had some really good grainy innovations. You could add grain to taste in camera in different intensities, but the trick that this camera had up its sleeve was every single frame was completely randomized. So it wasn't just like a cookie cutter, the same grain effect ends up on every single image. It would even take into account like highlights and shadows and really try to make it look quite filmic. And it was way before its time. The Fujifilm and the Lumix S9, etc. do this now, but the GX9 did something really cool very early on. Now, if you're not used to shooting advanced monochrome images, just hear me out on this one. It sounds a bit weird, but it's actually brilliant. You can add color filters into your monochrome settings on both Lumix and OM/Olympus cameras. What's the benefit of this, and why would you add a color filter on if you're shooting in black and white? Back in the film days, you would get physical filters to put on your lenses so that you could manipulate your black and white. For example, if you put a red filter over a monochrome setting, it will make the sky and the sea really dark and moody. But there's all different effects depending on the colour that you use. And we have the benefit of doing it digitally now and in camera. On the OM system side, you can use the color profile dial like you would find on the OM3 or the Pen F, or you can go into the photo profile settings and have a tinker in there as well. On the Lumix side, you need a camera that has the Leica monochrome D, so a lot of the more modern ones, but also a couple of bargains from the past as well. And in here, once you've got that profile on, you can sort of cycle through the different color filters. So the next time you're out shooting black and white, give these color filters a go, because it can dramatically change things in camera without you having to faff about it in editing. To my knowledge, this next one is just a Lumix thing, and that is the red night mode. Now, I shoot quite a lot of astrophotography and often find myself out and about in the dark, wandering around. You soon realize in those scenarios just how vital it is to retain your night vision. When you are in the dark and your eyes are adapted and then you walk over to the camera and it's blindingly bright at you, it's a pain in the backside. What Lumix have done is they've created a night mode that turns all of the menus red. It doesn't affect your final image, but it helps to preserve your night vision if you are shooting in the dark. If you do shoot out in the dark a lot, I would highly recommend getting a red headlamp. So this does like normal, but it will also give you a nice little red light as well. And when you are out and about at night, the red light keeps your night vision, everyone's happy, and it's less disruptive, and I highly recommend it. This next one's a blast from the past that I think is both underrated and it was also way before its time. In modern cameras now, we have pre-capture mode or pre-burst mode on Olympus and Lumix, where you can shoot really fast burst modes, but you can also shoot before you press the shutter. So you can half press the shutter, it'll take images on a loop. Once the actions happen, like the bird has left the branch, you can press the shutter and it will save the images prior to the shutter and after the shutter as well. It's super cool. But before that mode, we had 4K photo mode. And this first came out yonks ago on the GH4, I think was the first camera to have it. It was a very similar idea, except it was utilizing the frames in a 4K video. So you could utilize it in exactly the same way. You could pre-burst a video clip. The downsides being that the individual frames were only in JPEG and not RAW because it was taking it from a video file. And also the focus was locked as well, whereas now the more modern cameras, you can have it with continuous autofocus. It was so good. It circumvented slow burst modes, because if the camera could only do like 5 frames a second or 4 frames a second, but then you could shoot 30 frames a second with 4K photo mode, it really opened up a lot of options, and I think it was well before its time. You can find that on really older and affordable cameras as well, like GX800, as well as like the older GH line. So, was there any on this list that you weren't aware of? Let me know in the comments how I got on. I know I've missed out the major ones like Live Composite and Live ND, etc., but I think we go over those a lot in major videos. I wanted to shine a light on some more unconventional features. If you enjoyed this video, check out this video next where I talk about how I critiqued over 10,000 photos in the photo contest last year, and here are my most common mistakes and how to avoid them.